This is going to be a minimalist home tour with a difference, in that I'm going to preface it with showing not only where I buy all my pre-loved furniture, but also elaborating on how and why I love minimalist furniture and minimalist design as the source of comfort and beauty in a minimalist home. And after that, I'm going to move on to do an entire walkthrough of my home, revealing just how frugal every piece has been in my home. The cost, the value, showing where I thrifted it from and how much I thrifted it for. However, I feel like this frugal minimalist home tour today needs a little bit of context, especially because some of you may be thinking, hold on, don't you sometimes do furniture-free periods in your home? And yes, I do. And that is all the more reason for discussing minimalist furniture and how important it is. Because quite simply, I would rather be furniture free than have badly designed furniture. And part of the reason for today's video is to show you how well-designed furniture doesn't have to cost you the earth. As in, yes, sustainably, but also frugally in your pocket. Here's the context for today's frugal minimalist home tour. Here's the preface. This is the main pre-loved furniture store in our town, ironically named the Heart Foundation. It's where I buy nearly all my furniture as a minimalist. As you're about to see as I walk around, it's incredibly or extremely frugal. Where I live, many second-hand stores, aka thrift shops, are also charity shops. So when you donate a piece of furniture or buy one, you are giving money to the charity. I think this is a sustainable way to enjoy my love of furniture design, in that not only do I never buy new, but my pieces are simply and figuratively swapped out here. This doesn't mean I constantly thrift items. It means once a month I might visit this store with my mum, like I did as a child in many furniture showrooms, and admire the odd diamond in the rough. For not only are pieces pre-loved by their previous owners, but they're pre-loved by the designers. 11 out of the 12 times I visit in a year, I simply admire. Look at the construction, the detailing, but every now and then, because I am not bound by toxic minimalism, who says that minimalists never buy anything, especially if they're second-hand, I allow myself the pleasure of enjoying the piece of furniture in my home. But because I have a small 30 square metre home, approximately, this requires me to perform a one-in, one-out swap. I do this to keep my space, but also it makes me question exactly how much I like the piece in question. This method acts as a kind of regulatory system for not overfilling my home. So now I've told you how I buy nothing new in my minimalist home, but how about why? The why is this. Throughout my time on this channel, I have described home interior, specifically interior design, as a hobby of mine. However, I've come to think that this is selling it short. You see, design particularly is in my blood, and not just any design, but minimalist design with minimalist values. When I was little, my mum, being a graduate of design, would take me to visit all the major design showrooms and design museums. She'd teach me about the materials, how they'd formed the shapes, how they could be better She'd tell me about key designers she loved, such as Philippe Starck, Terence Conran, and Frank Lloyd Wright. What they all unseemingly had in common was the innate quality of simplicity and bringing organic nature into the home. Where design concepts didn't mesh, overall, minimalist design philosophy did. While some pored over the idea of beauty in the handmade, another formed a principle of simple, affordable, but quality pieces for everyone. These ideas and inspirations became part of a piece my mum designed, a piece called the Nestler. It was conceptually based on an ammonite rock formation. This is me modelling various prototypes throughout my mum's design sketchbooks. It used sustainable materials of metal and cotton and blended organic nature with the curves of minimalist Zen style. It was anthropologically designed with the human body in mind, to mould or stretch as desired, because the human body wants to move even at rest, which I think really we've definitely learned from furniture-free living. Mobility is best for the body, even in terms of furniture. Ironically, at the time that my mum was designing all these things, I had no idea how much of an important part of my life design would come to be. It's taken a long time for people to take home interior seriously, but it is finally classed as one of the visual arts, along with ceramics. People wouldn't mock people for being an art lover or collecting art or being an art appreciator. So why the stigma when it comes to furniture and design? One of the things I love most about being a minimalist is having my furniture be the key features in any room. On a white blank canvas, they stand out. Even when we may decide to live furniture free, it teaches us more about design than we realise. As we move throughout the day, we learn about what we require for comfort. Interior design is the architecture of the inside. It's what turns a beautifully designed house into a home. We know through minimalism that a home cannot be enjoyed with too much clutter. But let's not forget to celebrate our home by considering everything clutter. Let's give it the things that bring it to life. What gives it life is different for everyone, because everyone's life is different. An individual life in itself is continuously changing and fluid. So let's not be so strict with our surroundings. We can't enjoy various designs when we desire, but let's do it sustainably. My life has been brought up surrounded by an admiration for design as an art form. My great uncle was an artist and master of the forge with work in the Tate Gallery. My uncle was an antiques collector who revered historic design. My great grandfather was a master carpenter and craftsman. My mother is a contemporary designer who can design anything from ceramics to cookware to interior design or furniture. So when I say it's in my blood, what I mean is my blood flows with the inspiration of artists. And that is the context of this video. I'm going to walk through my minimalist home with you all today and discuss why I love the design and artistry of each piece of furniture, how I managed to thrift it sustainably so that my love of design doesn't cost me or the environment, but most poignantly reveal how my home does not come alive simply for the 3D nature of the furniture it contains, but because in every piece I recognise an artist's dream. I consider my walls the canvas. I get to nestle in the musings of functional art. it's time to do the actual home tour. But what I thought would be a really good idea is if we do a walkthrough where I tell you about all the smaller pieces and how much they cost, and then we go back to the bigger pieces, which I'm sure you've probably guessed at by now, is because I'd like to discuss the design of them as well as the price. And as I go around today, let's remember that it's not just about the price or the cost, it's about the value. Right, let's begin where I don't normally begin these home tours, which is kind of as a little reverse like this. I want to start at the end of this hallway today because I have a surprise coming up next week to do with what I have done to the end of this hallway for the time that my mum is taking care of Zala whilst we're away in this property. Hint, hint, part of it is there because I want it to be easily accessible for my mum, who will be looking after her own dog and our little puppy Zala. So many of you know that since we got rid of our bed, we required a bit more storage. So we have put those tubs up there. But it's not that kind of home tour today. It's really a home tour discussing about how I have thrifted things and really bought barely anything new. So let's talk about the mirrors. Those of you who have been here a long time will remember that we've lived here about 3.5 years now, and we've had about 3 mirrors in that time. You can go back and watch some of the older home tours if you'd like to see some of the others. To begin with, we had sort of a grey arch window type mirror. It was made to look like a fake window. And we got that second hand off Facebook Marketplace for £50. I then decided that the actual panelling in the window were a bit too busy. So I wanted something a bit more organic. So I went for a wobbly type pond design because, as perhaps you saw in the last home tour about organic design and nature in the home, I like things that are sort of fluid or fluid-like or curved. That's why I decided to get that mirror, because I loved it and I saw it for second hand on Amazon Warehouse. So I got it for £80 instead of £160. Now, quick little side note, I currently have no vehicle. My partner currently has no vehicle. We're looking for a van to go off and do van life, and therefore getting furniture, if it's not from the Heart Foundation charity shop in our town, is very difficult. So we compromise and we get stuff off Amazon Warehouse, because also our nearest city is over an hour away. Obviously we couldn't get big pieces on the train, and we just figure if you're buying something that would have gone to landfill, you're kind of saving it from going to landfill. Even though the Amazon company have not got the best reputation at the moment, if they are actually going to be taking it to landfill or they would be delivering things, to 60 other people in the area, in terms of the carbon footprint, it has got to be so much better to have one person deliver 60 things in one area than have 60 people all drive to the nearest city. In terms of sustainability, it has actually got to be better. Obviously, we try to buy as much off the local place where we can. But I will remind everybody from the portion of the video that you've just seen, this is a true passion of mine. Anyway, finally, we decided to get rid of those mirrors because they were mounted on the wall. And when we thought we were going to sublet this place, I just decided it was too much of a worry for me of somebody sort of banging into the mirrors. So I would prefer it to be a lean style mirror, because not only is that a bit safer, but as you probably saw when I was at the side, it even creates a tiny little bit of a storage area in a home where you have barely got any storage at all. We don't have any storage. This is actually a micro apartment, as I've said a lot, and that is the old entranceway door to this whole place being a micro apartment. This mirror, £20 off Marketplace, an absolute steal, as they delivered it for that as well. Right, let's move on. So I often get questions about why I swap things, and there are genuine reasons sometimes why I swap things, but also sometimes because I like to and because it's an interest, but sometimes genuine reasons. In fact, most of the time, genuine reasons. So let's go in the bedroom first. This £20, cheap, made of linen. We might not keep it. We might do a swap out for that to absolutely maximise that space, because I don't even like that there's lost space there. It is what it is. As you all know, we were given the futon for free, and the wabi-sabi table is something that I truly love. I think it's become a bit of a cliche now that people think of the minimalist arches as being something that all minimalist homes have. But I would say yes, if it's an ornament, but this isn't an ornament. It is, it has a purpose. And I like the fact that it's also ceramic and wabi-sabi and imperfect, because obviously not only do the minimalist arches bring in a new form of minimalism, which is more about curves and nature rather than sort of austere straight lines like minimalist style used to be, but this wabi-sabi textured ceramic finish really talks about impermanence and balance and the life cycle, which is something I really love. And how much was it? It should have been £35, but ironically, because it's got a chip that's not supposed to be in the top, it was £25. Now, we haven't got time to talk about all the little tiny objects, but most of them were thrifted, and if they weren't, they were from local stores for sort of less than £5. I'd barely spend anything. Now, I am going to come back to talk about the Hans Wegner chair and the Eiffel style table. The lamp is from Habitat, which was obviously founded by Terence Conran, as I spoke about in the beginning, and that is why it is relevant. It's made of paper, it's sustainable materials, it was cheap even though it was new, and it's very sustainable. This was also £5 from Habitat. It was cheap. The blind was free. It's solar powered, and I'm sure some of you can remember why that was free. It is made from jute and linen and bamboo. And I even have on the side a Habitat cotton sheet for the next time I change the bed, because like I said, we've been swapping between the charcoal grey, the beige and white bedding. We have actually got 3 sets. The green set that you saw a while ago is to go in the camper van, and probably some of the other sets will be to go in the camper van. 3, believe it or not, is currently needed because we change the bed about every 2 to 3 days, because we do let Zal on it and in it and everything, so it needs changing quite frequently. And sometimes one set still hasn't dried by the time we need the next set, and sometimes it even gets dirtied within one day, depending on what she's been doing. But as you can see now, she's playing with her little hammer, which she has to help us with DIY. And she's even been chewing her bone on it. We don't disallow her from going on anything, which is why they need constantly changing. Right, we will come back to those key pieces at the end. So, I don't really want to show you all too much in the hallway. So let's point the camera down whilst we go through to the other room, because I want the end of the hallway to be a surprise for you all, because we have done a makeover in that area. So, like I mentioned a couple of videos ago, this is not how the living room is staying. We are currently trying to sell the standing desk, which again was free, and I accepted it into my life because I do have quite a bad back. It's another reason that I've been enjoying sleeping on the floor, but we couldn't sell the Eiffel table, so we decided to have the Eiffel table out and actually have a go at selling the standing desk. Now, while we're on the subject of tables, I know that some people have perhaps said, you've had quite a few coffee tables since you've lived there, why do you keep swapping them? Well, they have actually all been swapped for genuine reasons. So the first circular Japandi coffee table that we ever had in the 3 years that we lived here, that actually got ruined with a candle. It burnt the top one day, and it was a complete accident because I normally put a mat down. I forgot to put a mat down. It got burnt. I tried to sand the burn off. I couldn't save the table and I just couldn't cope with looking at the burn on top of it anymore. So I painted the top and gave it back to the charity shop. I personally didn't like the look of the painted top, but I thought that somebody else might, especially if it was really cheap from the charity shop. So then I bought another second-hand table from the charity shop. They were both under £10. I'm sure, as you've just seen from the beginning of this video, it is an incredibly cheap thrift shop or charity shop or second-hand furniture store, whichever you want to call it. And the second long rectangle Japandi table we got, that was £8. Now, when we got gifted the 2 recliner chairs, we just didn't have enough space with them anymore. And at the time we got the recliner chairs, it was because our previous second-hand sofa that was only £70, the big, I'm sure you can remember it, the big L-shaped sofa that was here, that was only £70. We had it for something like 6 or 7 years, but it was a 10-year-old sofa and it was just so grubby. It couldn't even be cleaned anymore. The stitching had come off all the cushions and it had got splits and tears in it. So we finally decided to get rid of it. So when we were offered those chairs for free, we thought they were perfect. However, when we got Zala, they just weren't right anymore, and therefore the coffee table didn't go with it. So we got rid of it and we lived furniture free for a while. And to be honest, I really like living furniture free for a while, because it teaches us about the space, about what we really need and what we really use. And I just think it's a great way to learn about what you do with your own body throughout the day and what you require. And when we got Zala, we decided that we definitely missed having a sofa, but we just didn't want as big a sofa as what we had before. So we got this low club style sofa, which actually Terence Conran himself has become very kind of famous for designing sofas like this. But obviously he didn't design the original, which again I will talk to you about at the end along with the price, but it was very, very, very cheap. Now, macrame. I'm also very passionate about macrame. I made that one. You could consider it one of my hobbies, but I actually do think it has a utilitarian purpose, in that I'm planning to use it as a fly screen. You know, you could just simply put it off there, put it over there, and then I can have my window open and the flies can't come in. And we could even, if I trim the ends off a bit, use it for our camper van door as a fly screen. So they actually could be quite useful if you wanted them to be. But if it's just a hobby and you love it, that's fine too. Now, I've currently got a grey cover on here for obvious reasons, that Zala likes to sit up there. It's just for practical reasons, and whilst my mum is here with her big dog. But it's got a lovely white cover under there, which I will show you at the end when I discuss that chair as well. Now, let's talk about dining tables as well while I'm here. So we used to have the Eiffel table in here as a desk and a dining table, but can you all see this? That is a burn on the carpet. It was burning the carpet because it was glass and it's got a beveled edge, and the sun was hitting the table at an angle that was burning the carpet, which is why we decided we couldn't have it in this room anymore. When we discovered that, we thought maybe we can use it as a desk in the bedroom. Only the problem is, as you've just seen, the position it's currently in the bedroom is really the only position it can go in. Therefore, that's why we tried to get rid of it. But now, because after a year of trying to get rid of it, we can't. It's not that we don't like it, it's just that it's not suitable anymore. We've finally decided to just keep it until we do leave and have a go at selling that one to make our life a bit easier. So because the other table can't be in here as a dining table, we decided we definitely need a dining table now with Zala, because if it's low down, she will try and eat it. And we definitely need a second desk, because my partner is also working from home sometimes. And if we sit down on either the sofa or there, she is trying to jump up on our laps if we have our laptop on our knee. So we can't. We definitely needed this too. I will come back and discuss these at the end as well. The only other piece of furniture we have is this saddle bar stool, which obviously we could kind of sit there at the laptop, but it's not comfortable for a long time. We have that there now for a very multifunctional purpose. in that the stool is so much taller than the chairs, and we require it as a step stool to be able to reach things that are up on higher cupboards. But also that's where my partner sits when he comes home from work and he's a bit mucky because obviously the wood is easily wipeable. We can also use it as like a side table if we want. Like sometimes we can bring it in here, just stand it at the side of the sofa there, and it can be like a little side table as well. I've told you all about the little things and how cheap they are, and how everything just about was thrifted, and where it isn't is because it was sort of around £5 or at least under £10. Now let's talk about the key pieces that I love and how much they were. What I just kept saying throughout that whole home tour was mixing up the names Ercol and Eiffel, because obviously they both begin with E. And what's even more confusing is that one of them is also called Eames with an A that I'm about to discuss. But what I wanted to actually talk about was this splayed leg table design. You may all recognise the splayed leg table. I'm about to talk about the splayed leg chairs as well. Many people associate that with Ercol, as in Luciano Ercolini, who had a lot of mid-century modern furniture. And I think his first designs started around the 30s, but got more popular in the 50s. But he didn't actually invent the splayed leg design, which is now really associated with Scandi design, but just for the minimalist sort of aesthetic, it wasn't because they invented them. Originally, a splayed leg furniture design was from England with the Windsor chair, which was actually invented around the 1700s, so much sooner. But if we want to associate anybody with the modern minimalist style splayed leg chair, the actual woodworker was a Japanese woodworker called George Natini. Let me correct that if I'm pronouncing that wrong. But it was in the 1940s that he made a modern version of that, which is really what these modern minimalists splayed leg designs have originated from. Before we move on to actually discuss the Ercol design in the other room and the Eiffel design, you can really see each other's influence, because even designers get influence from other designers, and you can really see the influence on each other. How much did this table cost? Well, this was the most expensive piece that I have bought in this home, which is why I tried to sell it for so long. So it should have been £300, and I got it, if I remember correctly, for around half price on Amazon Warehouse, which is second hand, because like I've mentioned, we don't have a vehicle to be able to go collect our own furniture. It needs to be able to be delivered. So we try to get second hand where we can. We got it for around £150. So it's still thrifty. We still saved about half, but it is the most expensive piece in the home. Also, a quick one, forgot to mention when I was doing the home tour, one of the reasons that I actually love the paper lanterns is because they remind me of Japanese origami as well. So I think it's quite funny that these modern Scandi designs, or we call them Scandi, they're actually more Japanese and, if anything, English, which is quite interesting. Right, let's go through there. What I was just talking about in there is this Eiffel design with steel cross brace legs and splayed legs. This is a famous design. I'm sure many of you have seen the chair version in many minimalist homes, and the design is by Charles and Ray Ames. It was invented or designed in the 1950s. Terence Conran liked the design so much that he often sold versions of it, and some of you may even remember that I had a clear one right at the start of my time on this channel, and in the end I ended up gifting it to my mum. But what I loved about the clear ones was, to me, they were like a cross between an Eiffel chair and a Philippe Starck ghost chair. They were like a hybrid cross of designs, which I really enjoyed. Anyway, that's why I love this design, that it has been modelled and designed with the concept of being constructed like the Eiffel Tower. This was free. Somebody left it on the street. Bargain. Since I started this video sitting on the Hans Wegner chair, I feel like it definitely needs a mention. I absolutely think they are one of the most beautiful chairs I have ever seen, which is why I purposefully went out looking for one. Never did they crop up in my local furniture store. So instead, I looked online and I managed to find all three that we have in this home. The grey one in there, the two natural wood ones in here. By the way, I didn't paint the other one grey. It was already painted. I went looking secondhand on eBay, and the grey one was something like only £30, maybe £35 if I remember correctly. And these were £60. But let's talk about the design. The Hans Wegner wishbone chair was designed in 1949 and they have been in production ever since. Obviously famous for the Y-shaped backrest, which people call a wishbone, and they are steam bent. They are crafted from one single piece of wood, and each seat is hand woven from 120 meters of paper, which is another reason again I like it. Sustainable materials, and the paper really reminds me of origami because the design actually was conceptually designed on a Chinese Ming Dynasty chair, which obviously we know origami is Japanese. You see the association and the crossover of designs. Also, what's quite funny is again, people associate this with Scandi design, but that's just because I think we find it in Scandi styled homes. It was designed for Carl Hansen by Hans Wegner. This is a saddle bar stool, and originally this is how it was designed to be sat on, and the true ones designed based on the original. That's why they actually go in a little bit there for your thighs to rest on. Now, of course, many of us sit like this on it. There's no problem with that. That is obviously how most stools are designed to be sat on. But Ercolini, as in Ercole Luciano Ercolini, who I've just been discussing already, who famously also made splayed leg chairs and tables, also designed this stool, because the idea is, again, thinking about the anthropometrics of the human body and how it uses and moves with the piece of furniture, and to also make it comfortable for the spine. He designed it so that when people sit on it, their hips actually tilt forwards, which when sitting is the best position for the spine. Now, this one that I have, I actually got from Habitat, and it was only £25. So for once, it was a new item, but it was incredibly affordable and all sustainable materials. And obviously it is based on how we sit in a saddle, and even how a saddle bar is that a saddle rests on. So obviously, for practical reasons, sometimes I put a blanket on my chair, which is a little bit sad, but that's something we have to do with dogs. Can you all see one of the key features that I love about this Togo or Togo chair? I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that. It has this ruched effect in the fabric, which is actually part of the original design, because the reason people call it also a caterpillar chair is because the concept is actually that it is supposed to look like a cocoon, as in you are as comfortable as a caterpillar turning into a butterfly when you sit in this chair or curl up in this chair. I love that it actually has no internal support structure. It is entirely made of sponge. It squashes down really small for transport, which is great. I absolutely love it. This chair was designed by Michelle Ducasse in 1973, and it is also a low slung, ergonomic, organic design, and it is entirely made to support the body's spine. The original ones are very, very, very expensive. I think you're looking anywhere from around £500 to £1,000, sometimes more, even more if it is the sofa version. This is a dupe, as obviously many items and pieces of furniture that have been successful obviously also do get replicas made. And this one I did get from Amazon when we were having all the difficulty with our other chairs that we got for free. I realised that we wanted a smaller sofa that I'm about to discuss in a minute, and perhaps one low comfortable chair, because I actually quite like to lay on an evening, but my partner likes to sit, and he said he'd fancy something quite low slung like this. And obviously it's great because Zala gets to sit and enjoy the back. They go for around £90 on Amazon if you buy them new, but I kept my beady little eye out again for if any went into the Amazon warehouse for second-hand buys, and eventually this popped up in Amazon warehouse and it was half price, so I only paid £45 because very, very tiny. There is what looks like some tiny green grass stain on it. This company actually also do this cover in green, and I'm wondering if a little bit of dye from one of the other products got onto this one. Anyway, it's a tiny speck. You can't hardly see it, and yet it made it be half price. Bargain. Now let's go discuss the sofa. Part of the reason that I absolutely love low slung furniture is that it really doesn't invade the space. You have more space upwards vertically, and it has been said to always give the illusion of a bigger space even when the space is not that big. I think that's also why Terence Conran himself also enjoyed these low slung club sofas. So these sofas that you see with very low backs that aren't actually that much higher than the seat themselves, and then these quite wide square arms, they're based on a 1920s club sofa. The idea also is that they were originally in leather because that was more hard wearing, it would last longer, it was wipeable, because like the title suggests, they were for clubs and bars and cigar rooms where people might be spilling drinks and you might need to be wiping them. Obviously now you can get versions that aren't real leather, but they're so comfortable, because even though the frame would suggest they are quite rigid, often they have these really lovely soft backs, and the arms themselves are obviously so low that they even provide what a pillow would. So really you don't even need a pillow. Your neck, if you choose to lay on it, kind of comfortably sits in that space. So I have always loved these low slung club sofas. So how much did I pay for this? This one is from the Heart Foundation. Our previous sofa was from the Heart Foundation. I already mentioned the previous one was £70. This one was just £30. So for anyone who doesn't know, I actually have a master's in philosophy, and there's a branch of philosophy called aestheticism, which, like it sounds, is about the study of aesthetics, simplified as taste and what we all find beautiful, not just to do with people, but to do with style, to do with why we have perhaps a favourite colour, how we even like positioning things in our room, what we think looks good spatially, because as the expression goes, there is no accounting for taste, because everybody's taste, for the most part, is different, and that is fine. And that is why some of us might like a to-go chair or a ghost chair or a wishbone chair. It might be why somebody else likes something completely different, and that is absolutely fine. But I personally find it fascinating. It might even be why I enjoy design so much, along with the large influence from my mum. It's why also I think I like to have periods where I enjoy different furniture in my home. Now, if I had a bigger home, I would obviously be able to have a little bit more furniture without the place looking cluttered. I might not have to swap it quite as much, but because I live in a tiny 30-metre square, what used to be a micro apartment all in one room, if I want to enjoy other furniture, really I have to do a one in, one out. But I can't press the point enough that usually it has always been when an event has happened, like something has broken or something has worn out or something hasn't gone with something else anymore because the other thing has broken, that I've taken that as an opportunity to enjoy a different style of furniture for a while, albeit second hand. And that way I get to enjoy the pieces like a person would get to appreciate a piece of art. Otherwise, as Frank Lloyd Wright said, many of us are just janitors of our possessions. In conclusion, I'd like to dedicate this video to my mum, who is a born designer, who taught me the value of everything instead of the price of everything, and how to see beauty in everyday objects and appreciate simple but extraordinary design, because these everyday objects that we actually use are truly functional art, and they make it possible not to need anything else and still feel like you are surrounded by beauty and comfort. Someone has poured their life's energy, their life force into these objects, and dare I even say their love. These carefully thought out pieces aren't just inanimate objects like so many others, because these objects are animated by us. When we use them every day, we bring them to life.